Welcome to the Engage Jeffco Podcast, where we explore the people, priorities, and stories shaping life here in Jefferson County. I'm Johnny Hart. No matter how long you've called Jeffco home, or even if you're just curious, this podcast helps you keep up with what's happening in our community and why it matters. In this episode, we're taking a closer look at the Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport and its role in the local community and regional economy. I sat down with Airport Director Erick Dahl to talk about his first year in the role and what it's been like to step into leadership at one of Colorado's busiest airports. From laying the groundwork for long-term success to building stronger partnerships and creating a culture of transparency, Erick shares how RMMA is working to be a good neighbor, an economic engine, and a collaborative hub for the community. We also talk about what it means to lead by example, invest in staff, and bring people together, both inside and outside the airport fence line. Let's get into it. So first off, thank you for joining us today, Erick, and we appreciate you coming into our studios to talk about the Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport.
No problem. It's a pleasure to be here.
Before we get into the serious questions, I've got to ask you, how great does it feel to come in to work every day and see the view of those flat irons?
I think it's great. It's a pleasure to come to work every day. I wake up and every day is a new adventure at the airport. And that's one of the great things about it is that you never know what you're going to be having. You never know what will be happening that day, but the mountains greet you every morning.
Obviously, we're an audio medium, so for the listeners out there, can you kind of explain that view that you get every day coming into the airport?
Yeah, certainly. So the Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport is up on Mesa. On the cliffs, you can see all of downtown Denver. You can see all of Westminster, Broomfield, Louisville, Lafayette, Superior. You can see for miles. You may not know this, Denver's in a bowl. And so if you look up far enough, you can see Denver International Airport, you can see Colorado Spaceport, all kind of out there on the horizon.
So last May, you became the airport director, and it was kind of a critical time for the airport. So with a year under your belt, what stands out for you the most, and how have you been able to balance growth and community engagement with community concerns and operational excellence?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. So it has been about a year now, or a little over a year now. And it's been, one of those processes where we try to figure out how we lay the foundations for the future going forward. As you mentioned, it was kind of a tumultuous time for the airport. The airport director had departed from the airport, and they were looking at new ways to engage the community, how to outreach with the staff. And they really wanted someone to kind of lay that groundwork and trust and engagement. And I think we've done a really good job with that with our airport staff and with our community engagement folks. We've really started trying to figure out how we can talk best with the community. We're doing our website, doing accessibility for the website, doing community engagement opportunities with open houses where we invite the public to the airport that we've never done before. We're really trying to figure out how we reach people who have never thought about the airport in the past and how we best communicate with them.
You've kind of described this first year in the role as laying the foundation for long-term success. What does that look like in practice, and what's your vision for building trust and transparency and fostering strong relationships both within the airport and the community around it?
The airport is like a little city in itself, right? It has all the kind of the issues that a city has, all the issues that an airport has, all the issues that different transportation methods have. And so it becomes one of how do you communicate with your staff in a way that they can respect what's happening at the airport? How do you communicate with like the sponsor or the county in a way that they understand what's happening at the airport? And how do you engage with airport users? And how do you engage with the general public as well? Each of those, you say the same things, you talk to them in the same messages. The messages might be a little different to be customized for the audience, but you want to make sure that the things you say are consistent. And so that's where we say about that foundation is that how can we talk to people in a consistent, trusting way in which we are honest about what the airport is, what we do, and how we best can be a better neighbor or how we can grow in a way that's good for our region and for our users. It really is a balancing act trying to figure out how you take all those things, put them together, and boil it down into making sure the airport can be the best that it can be.
Let's dive a little bit deeper into some of those airport initiatives that you've had over the past 12 months. Community engagement has been a large focus. Can you talk about some of the steps you've taken to ensure that, like hosting town halls and tours to kind of work on that transparency?
Yeah, certainly. Okay, so being able to talk about what's happening at the airport is pretty important for us at the airport staff and for me. We've been working on a transparency portal that's not quite ready to go out yet. We have that process of going through the airport documents and releasing them into a portal, and hopefully we'll have that done soon, and where people can learn more about the airport. We'll provide those documents as they come up. We've had airport tours where we've invited local cities to come and hear about the airport and then tour the airport, see kind of what it's like to be out on the runways and taxiways and see planes flying, see the view from that mesa and see what it looks like from up there. With the airport tours, we've also done those town halls where we have never done before, but we just got done doing our second quarterly town hall. We had welcomed the community welcomed our airport users into the airport terminal. And we have boards set up and we don't do presentations. It's all very low key. There's no forced conversations. If there's something you want to know about the airport staff, you can go to that airport staff member and learn about it. If you have a question about finances or operations or airport maintenance, we have all the staff there to answer those questions. You want to know about the voluntary noise abatement plans or the Part 150 study or things the airport's doing for projects, we have staff for that too. So it really is a way for us to have engaged conversations with people that want to know more about the airport and how we as an airport can take that, what we learn from the community and from our users, and take that into our calculus going forward about how best we operate the airport.
And the airport does have a number of different partners it connects with, from local governments, like you just mentioned, to chambers of commerce and the FAA. How have you seen those relationships strengthen over the past year?
Yeah, it's interesting. So there are a lot of different aviation industry groups. The Colorado Airport Operators Association is one in which it's like the airports get together. We have conferences. Generally, we have about 2 a year in which we learn more about what's happening at airports in our state, what's happening to airports nationwide, and how they're interacting and how they're responding to different initiatives, whether that's engagement with the community or noise studies or flight paths or things like that. There's different ways we can work with the Colorado Airport Operators Association and our peers to learn more about what the best business practices are. With that, we also talk to the FAA quite a bit about what they're looking for. We don't control flight paths. The airport doesn't control like how planes leave or come into the area. But if we better understand how the FAA is directing traffic, it allows us to better answer questions that the public might have about why. And so that partnership is really important to us, not only from an airport projects perspective, but also from understanding what the FAA is looking for or how they're responding to their own issues, whether it be staffing levels or modernization or things that the FAA is going through as well. Chambers, we're always happy to meet with chambers, talk to them about what's happening in their cities, how the airport can be an economic driver for them. They like to say, I suppose aviation professionals like to say that a mile of road will take you a mile, but a mile of runway will take you anywhere in the world. And I suppose that's true to a certain extent. And our customers come from all over the world. We had 35 different countries come to our airport last year, and we look forward to more in the future. But the chambers really are part of that and figuring out how their relationship with the businesses, what they're looking for their own personal growth and for what the cities are looking for growth and how they respond to different infrastructure needs. And the airport can be there to help them. Same with city council members, same with HOAs, different organizations that exist out there in the periphery of the airport is how we can listen to them, how we can better understand what they think about the airport, and how we can take that information that they gave us and then respond. Those partnerships are really important, and we look forward to forging more partnerships as we go forward.
More on the operational side of things, what are some of the improvements and initiatives that you're most proud of? And I'm specifically thinking of Verve.
So Verve is a pretty important development for us. Verve is about 500, 400 acres of development off the airport. The land was released from the airport for private sale, and we're coming to the end of being able to sell all of that land and develop that not only for Broomfield, Westminster, Superior, but for people all along the 128-93 corridor. All will benefit from that development there at the Verve. And so we've been really happy with the response rate that we've seen for interested developers on the Verve. We have a couple more lots left, not very big ones, but hopefully they will fill those soon too. You said operations. I know that we're on August 18th, we started doing taxiway Kilo. So that's a new taxiway that's being built on airport property to connect existing airport infrastructure to potential new infrastructure. We're looking at trying to figure out how we use that land in the highest, best use. So rather than just allowing anybody to come and build whatever they would want, we're trying to figure out how to zone that, plan it efficiently so that we can get some good development there that the chambers actually think would be beneficial for the regions too. So it'll be a cooperative investment process to make sure that we develop the Verve and the Southwest Development Area efficiently and correctly.
So both growth and noise are often hot button topics around the airport. What steps have you taken proactively to address noise concerns? And can you talk about the 150 noise compatibility study?
The Part 150 noise compatibility study started prior to my arrival, but it had not been very far down the road. The Part 150 study is a way for airports to look at their noise impact and for noise issues for incompatible land uses near the airport. So it doesn't look at impacts for cities north or south, east or west of the airport. It looks at noise impacts pretty much right at the airport itself. The FAA would say they would look at the 65 DNL contour line as being that area where if you're inside that contour or that shape, that polygon, you could be a potential incompatible land use. And it depends on the type of land use, but the part of the 150 study is looking at all the different land uses around the airport. And they use a very large box to do that because we don't know how big the contour is going to be. So we look at land uses as far out as we can from the airport that makes sense. And then once the noise study is done, which is an analytical look at all the different aircraft operating in and out of the airport, how they fly in and out of the airport, whether they stay in the traffic pattern or not, that analytical model builds that contour, and then they look at that inside the contour to determine if there's incompatible land uses. That study is about 2 years long. It's very serious a study for the FAA. It's very prescriptive in the way the FAA looks at how that study works. First year is roughly looking and developing noise exposure models, that 65 DNL contour line I talked about. And then the second year, if they find incompatible land uses in that contour, would be the noise control plan, which would be how the airport could potentially make voluntary adjustments to flight paths that would help control that contour and to help decrease incompatible land uses. So it's a pretty long study. It's pretty serious for the FAA to do. It was budgeted for about $2 million. We had one public open house last year for the general public to learn more about the Part 150 study. We would expect the next set of focus groups to meet next year, early next year, and then the open house again to be meeting February, March timeframe. More information on that will get released once we have it.
When residents bring forward these concerns, how do you strike that balance between listening and responding and still supporting the airport's growth?
It is tricky. You mentioned a balancing act, or like how do you balance the community's concerns or different individuals' concerns about noise versus airport growth? And it really comes down to how do we use that land in the highest, best use possible that we can. Like I'd mentioned before, it would be possible to develop all that land as piston single engine aircraft that some of the community members find the most disruptive. That's not the goal. It's not our intention to do that. Our intention is to figure out how we use that area to grow the airport in a way that is for like corporate jets or MRO or maintenance repair organizations or special aviation service organizations or SASOs that don't fly as much, but they still generate jobs on the airport, generate jobs in the region. And that's kind of where that balancing comes from us is the airport will grow. It will never not grow. It's like any other thing else. Cities grow, airport grows, population grows. How do we utilize that area for growth in a way that is beneficial for everyone rather than just a few?
So it's been said that you like to foster a "we are in this together" culture within the airport. Why is that such an important aspect of what you're trying to do there? And how are you working across departments and engaging employees?
Well, I think that's an important way to look at it. One thing the airports can find themselves into, or airport directors can find themselves into, is thinking that they are the one all be all and they are the last stop, which isn't true. Like an airport is a collaboration effort between lots of different agencies, a lot of different staff. And sure, I suppose the buck stops with the airport director, but as a whole, we are in it together, whether it's the operations of the airport, the finance director of the airport, or planning and development for the airport. Each person has a special focus, a special task, and they bring their own special knowledge and abilities and skills to the table. And we can harness those to make the airport a better place rather than just the vision of maybe one person, but a vision of a collective makes the airport a better place rather than it could otherwise be.
You've also committed to employee development and professional training, along with giving the staff the tools they need to be successful at the airport. Why is it so important to you, and what impact have you seen on RMMA?
As I mentioned, every employee brings their own skills and their knowledge and their experiences together to make the airport a better place. Being able to provide additional education to employees who need it or want it is really important to me because it makes sure that they can learn what are other airports doing. What are other best business practices that are out there? We won't know everything. We can't possibly know everything, but we can know where to find it. And so if we can get employees to learn more about operations or facility maintenance or airfield maintenance, whatever they can bring back to the airport, what knowledge they gain out there is not only beneficial for them, for their own personal growth, but it's beneficial from the airport's perspective too, as a way for us to harness everybody's special skills. That's the important part for me is like, if they're able to bring that together, the airport can be better.
You're also quite hands-on when it comes to events and projects around the airport. Why is it so important for you to lead by example, and how does that look like on a day-to-day basis?
One of the questions that often gets asked is, how do we manage an airport? And I mentioned an airport is like a city. It's got all the same city type situations with planning and zoning, development, everything else. And I think it's important for me to be as involved as I need to be. So like if we have a project happening at the airport, or we have operational issues happening at the airport, or special events happening at the airport, we have staff that specialize in that. But it helps to be able to understand what they're doing, and it helps understand how to take all the different aspects that are happening at the airport and combine them together. We do have regular staff meetings, we do meet regularly, but it helps to have someone that can kind of run through the lines and through the projects and say, okay, well, we're doing this over here, we're doing that over here, let's bring those together. And we could really make these projects more successful by sharing that information. So it is important to be down there and to talk to people and make sure everybody understands what our goals are and our objectives are, but we really are in it together.
I want to circle back to community relations for a moment. We talked about it earlier, but you said you wanted the airport to be a good neighbor. What does that mean in practice, and what kind of challenges do you face in being able to be that good neighbor?
That is one of the tricky things about the job. People say, why can't the airport be a good neighbor? Or why can't the airport be a better neighbor? Or some variation of those topics. And it is very tricky. Like a lot of different people have a different definition of what that means. What is a good neighbor? And so for the airport, being a good neighbor is really about how do we operate the airport? How do we manage the airport? How do we communicate with our community? How do we communicate with the FAA in a way that's open, honest, and transparent, that shares information, that divulges information in a way that's constructive? We understand that the community or certain members of the community are not going to like the airport ever. It really isn't a degree that we could do to make everyone happy all the time, but we try to figure out how we can listen to what everybody's saying, how we acknowledge what people are saying to us, and how we can take that and move to the future. That's how we see a good neighbor, is being able to listen, engage, and we won't always do necessarily what everybody thinks we should do, but we're going to do what's best for the airport and what we believe is best for the region as a whole.
And you also talked earlier about how the airport is this economic driver. Can you kind of talk about the airport's role in supporting jobs around the region and business and growth in general?
Yeah, so about every 4 or 5 years, the Colorado Department of Transportation puts together an economic impact study for aeronautics, and they determine how many jobs airports create, what the payroll looks like, what the business wages look like, and try to figure out what that economic impact looks like. We were about $1.2 billion of economic output last year. That grew quite a bit from the last study that they did. And we're about 4,200 jobs that we helped create, either direct or indirect, from the airport, which is not a too shy of a number. So we have good paying jobs that come out of the airport, lots of jobs that come out of the airport, lots of economic value and business payroll and business revenue that comes out of the airport. And so we look at CDOT as the way that they collect that information for us and figure out what that economic impact looks like. But for us, for the airport, we continue to try to figure out how we can be better for our airport users, how we can be better for the people who have a vested stakeholder position in the airport. And that's not just users or county managements, but we look at stakeholders as being everybody. Community members are stakeholders, airport users are stakeholders. Everybody has an interest in the airport, and it's good to be able to listen to all of that, figure out what works best, and then utilize that to drive the airport forward.
And speaking on that community, getting all those stakeholders together for events like the tenant barbecue or other community gatherings, how does that build that camaraderie around RMMA?
Yeah, so pre-COVID, we had a airport tenant barbecue, for lack of a better word, which was just an opportunity for tenants to get together and share stories about the airport, share stories about flying, share their love for aviation with their community members who want to come, or for other pilots who are there. And it really does build that camaraderie between themselves and between the airport. And it really reinforces what the airport is. I mean, we really are kind of like that gilded age of aviation where people have this love of flight, this love of aircraft, and it really does allow them to share those stories. And I think that's important, not only from the airport's perspective to help facilitate those conversations, but to really share the stories about that rather than always harnessing on some of the perceived negatives of the airport, but really talk about some of the good things the airport does. Like the airport rescue and firefighter truck was in the Louisville Labor Day Parade. It had pretty good reception there. And we continue to think about different events that we can do throughout the year to broaden our horizon and our outreach beyond tenant barbecues, beyond parades, whether we're going to the HOAs or going into Lions clubs or Rotary clubs, wherever we can go to talk about the airport and talk about it holistically, the good and the bad, I think is beneficial for everyone.
As you head into year 2, or I guess we've already started year 2, but as you progress through year 2, what are your top priorities and what excites you most about these future initiatives?
Yeah, so we'll have a lot kind of happening in this next year. Maybe not a lot visually, but we have the Part 150 study that continues, right? Like I mentioned, that'll be probably early next year before we see more on that with the noise exposure models. But even then, that's still into my year 2. And so I'm looking forward to that, making sure that we can do that as properly as we can. Make sure we're listening to all the community feedback that's out there. We have an email set up at the RMMA part150study.com website that people can submit their comments to, good or bad. And all of that gets added to the Part 150 study. I think that's important. We have the taxway project that started in August. Taxway Kilo, getting that finished, getting that operational, working through a way to develop the airport that is that good neighbor perspective where we're trying to be the highest and best use are all things that will come up in this next year. And how I and the airport staff respond to it and develop it will make us better.
Would you say that the first year was more listening and building that trust and setting a clear direction, and this next year is more kind of delivering on that promise?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. I mean, the first year really is about like listening, but we never stop listening. It's not like in year 2 where we're done listening or anything. We're perpetually always listening to everyone, every stakeholder, every airport user, community group. We continue to listen, continue to think about how that works from a feedback perspective. But yeah, the first year is how do we as an airport listen? How do we engage? And then year 2 will be more about the listening and continuing to deliver on the engagement perspective and trying to figure out how we too can develop the airport in that good neighbor perspective.
Before we get out of here, where can people go to find information about Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport?
So you can go to jeffco.us, and then from there you can go to the airport's website to learn about the Part 150 study. There's RMA part150study.com. We always are active on all social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram. We have a pretty good active social media presence now these days. And so you can reach out and talk to us just about anywhere.
Well, Erick, thank you for joining us. It's really been a pleasure to talk to you.
Well, thank you very much.
A big thank you to Erick Dahl for joining us and sharing his insight into the daily operations, community concerns, and long-range vision for Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport. As we heard today, balancing growth and neighborhood impact isn't easy, but it's essential. Whether it's through federal coordination, public meetings, or technical solutions, RMMA is in the thick of some important conversations. If you'd like to learn more or find resources on how to get involved or share feedback, head to www.jeffco.us and we'll include the links in the show notes. And we want to hear from you too. Have a topic you'd like us to cover? Know someone who's making a difference in Jeffco? Reach out on social media and through the county website. Engage Jeffco is also a monthly newsletter. You can subscribe using the link in the show notes and follow us online to stay in the know. And if you enjoyed this episode, please give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and share it with someone who might appreciate this conversation. Thanks again for listening. Take care and look out for one another, Jeffco.